have no battery anyway, so. No gavel,
No
Mr. Chairman?
No, no gavel again.
Wow.
We'll call this meeting of the County Commissioners to order. The first item on the agenda is minutes. And as you note, you have minutes from November 7 and 14.
Yes.
We do not have a quorum for the 14th to vote on. On the 7th, we do.
So moved.
There's been a motion to approve the minutes of November 7. Do I hear a second on that?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So voted on the 7th. Can't do the 14th, don't have a quorum. So, all right, that's out of the way. The Honorable Joe Salito is here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Please come up.
This is the meeting the first Wednesday of December to certify the vote. Just to let the county commissioners know this morning, the Register of Probate, myself, and the Register and the Judge of the Probate Court with the Elections Commission for Dukes County, we certified the vote for the 7 county commissioners, and that was done this morning. I'm here this afternoon to certify the vote as to the Register of Deeds and as to the members of the Martha's Vineyard Commission. This is a letter we're sending off to the Secretary of State. Is the certification of the vote, and on the one for the Dukes County Register of Deeds, I need you to sign his commission. So I'll pass that around.
Okay.
Do we need a motion?
He is the
No.
motion.
He is the motion. All right, sounds good to me.
There you go.
Trustee.
Thank you.
We'll start with Leon on this side. I can't reach him, but
And that's the commission, so please
Okay.
sign on the top
top
line.
line, okay?
And everybody else know. Used to be a lot easier when there was 3 county commissioners.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not touching that line with a 10-foot pole.
It was a long, long time ago.
It was, it was.
And this is the certification of the vote for the Martha's Vineyard Commission.
Okay.
That's the letter, Mr. Chairman, and then the certification to secretary.
I already signed this, and this one goes that way now.
Oh.
All right.
3, 4. 4? We signing 4 things or 3?
You're signing,
So far.
1, 2, 3, 4,
Oh,
5.
okay. Oh, so, okay, there's some coming.
1, 2, 3,
2
4,
letters.
5. That's
Okay.
complete. They have 5 signatures?
Oh.
Well, that's why I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the county commissioners for their support over all these years. I can remember the days when as the county clerk, I used to have to come in and take the minutes of the meeting myself. But again, I'd like to thank you all for your support over the last 45 years that I've worked in the clerk's office.
And Joe, while you're here, we have something prepared for you. This plaque is in grateful recognition of your hard work and your dedicated services to the citizens of Dukes County for the last 42 years.
Thank you, John. I
Thank you.
appreciate that.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
I really appreciate it. I've enjoyed working. It used to be fun to come in and take the minutes of the meetings at times. Some of the meetings used to last probably maybe 6 or 7 minutes back in those days.
Well, you're welcome back anytime, Joe.
Thank you, John.
We were looking for someone to do that, and as a retired person, we could give you a stipend and...
Well, I've been talking to the county manager, and there's a possibility. I have to retire as the parking clerk, which has absolutely nothing to do with my position as the clerk of the courts, and I'm going to be visiting some of the selectmen to see if I may still continue to do that and run everything from up here, up at the county office, and be of assistance to the parking clerk. So it's something we're looking into.
Excellent.
Okay, again, thank you very much.
Joe.
It's very
Welcome, Joe.
appreciated.
Our pleasure.
Thank you, Joe.
Absolutely.
John, that come in a box?
Why don't you just mind your own?
Well, I was gonna give him his box to take it with it.
I think he said it once.
What's that? Oh,
Do you want an empty box?
thank you.
That's,
And if you don't want to put in his car.
Thank you, Leon.
you're welcome.
Thanks,
Thank
Joe.
you.
Thanks, man, thank
I will
you.
call you,
All right, I wish you would. Thank you very much.
obviously after the holidays.
Thank you. Okay.
He's my brother.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank
again.
you.
The next item. Pleasure to have Art Spad back and his attorney there of, oh, yeah, Rappaport. We're here to discuss on the approval of the historic preservation restriction. Please, Art, you,
So I will, if I may.
oh, yes, okay.
So, we have been contacted by the town of Edgartown. They are owners of a house that is in the Edgartown Historic District. And they would like to place a historic preservation restriction on this house. But they, because their owner cannot be also the holder of the restriction. And therefore, they asked the county if they would, be the holder. So they would like to grant us the historic preservation restriction, and there is an agreement that I sent to you between the town of Edgartown and the county, and I had the legal counsel review it, and you have all received the legal opinion that I need the county commissioner's approval to sign the acceptance of this restriction. If you have any question, Art and Ron Rappaport are here to answer them, but I would recommend, because the town of Edgartown agreed to do all the things that our lawyer recommended, that we ask them to do in order to protect the county as the holder of this restriction.
Thank you. Leon has a question.
Do we need to make a motion, then discuss it when they make their presentation, or do their presentation, then make the motion? I don't know the answer to that one.
Just make a motion.
I move that we approve the acceptance of that's being requested by the town of
Second.
Edgartown.
It's been moved and seconded. Do we need
Discussion.
any further discussion?
Yeah, just-
Yes.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Quick,
Go ahead.
well, I had a quick question.
Go ahead.
You did kind of peruse this, and, so it's not gonna cost us, meaning the county, any more money to do this, and, there was which it didn't appear, but I just, knowing that, that was I guess my biggest concern. I think otherwise, we'd love to facilitate, or if it is gonna cost us,
It's-
it is gonna cost us more money.
No, so,
that's what I
so we
thought.
don't have any obligations, we have right to action. It will not cost any money in the legal point. County has no responsibility for paying for any work needed. And then if we have to take a legal action, we have, the Edgartown agreed that they will take on the responsibility of reimbursing us for any legal costs or anything else that we would
Richard,
incur.
you have a question?
Yes, I'm a very simple-minded person, and I looked at all these documents, and could somebody just in a couple of sentences tell me what all this means? I know there's a lot, you could tell me, the line where it says we don't have this and the effective date, but this means what? We're going to accept what to do what and why.
So,
Wait, Art Spadback.
Okay,
Okay, so, in simple terms,
simple,
Ron can explain it in complicated terms. In simple terms, this is what it is.
okay.
We're asking the county to be the holder of the conservation restriction on the portion of land that we bought with CPC money.
CPC.
Okay, that's
Community
it.
preservation.
I just, go
Yeah,
ahead.
okay. And we're required by the state, because part of it's state money, to grant this, to have a conservation restriction. And by the rules, it can't be held by the owner of the property. So since the town owns the land, our Historic District Commission, which would normally, or our Conservation Commission, which would normally hold these kinds of restrictions, can't do it. But another governmental entity can, and that's why you're able to hold this restriction. We've indemnified the county completely. There's going to be no expense to the county whatsoever, and it was designed to be as simple and easy as that in all the complicated
So
legal
if this
stuff.
doesn't happen, what happens?
What do you mean?
If this does, if we say no, then what?
Well, then we have to find another entity that will
Okay.
suit up.
Okay.
That's all.
Bob?
What is the liability protection? Where is that?
Ron,
It's right in the document.
Yeah, it's, so, there is a clause that the Edgartown lawyer and our lawyer agreed on. So it says to the maximum extent allowed by applicable law, grantor, meaning Edgartown, agrees to provide information to grantee as to the insurance grantor maintains for parcel B, and to include grantee as an additional insured on the insurance grantor maintains for parcel B, and grantor agrees to assume all costs and liabilities associated with the creation, maintenance, and use of parcel B, and to indemnify, defend, and hold harmless grantee from any and all claims against the grantee arising from the grantee being the holder of this restriction.
I guess what I'm looking at here is that there are times when the appropriate insurance is in place, but it's not sufficient to cover an award. The town would then fill the difference. I mean, I was looking for the wording and
Sure, it's
I
right.
kind of swim in this.
So it's page six, paragraph C. It's like we're both provide insurance and will indemnify the defendant holder.
Look, from my perspective, this is a win-win situation. If we have read the document, I did read the document, and we can't go wrong in this situation. And I urge the members of the board to approve of this.
Move the question.
Second.
Moved to second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So voted.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Greatly appreciate it.
We appreciate it.
Can't mess with you.
This is a good, I think as John said, it's a win-win situation.
No, absolutely.
This is another demonstration of the value of the county to the island. And Edgartown had a need for a governmental entity to hold this restriction. The county is here to step up to the plate and do that for us. I always like to try and identify, and have over the years, how the county helps the island. And this is just another small example, but the town of Edgartown is appreciative for doing this.
And thank you very much.
Thanks, Art. Thanks, Ron.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Okay.
Okay, can we move on?
Okay, so here, you can move this along.
Financial
Art,
reports.
can
Art.
you give one to Art before you
Art,
write?
please take one of
You would
these.
really like to see this piece of paper.
And I want to say, Ron, while we have a pause here, I am pleased with the new partner that you're taking into your practice in January, Algonquin J. Calhoun.
That'd be Joseph E. Sleeper. We are maxed out in our building, but thank you.
Okay, so,
Is that your pen name?
No, don't you know who he is?
No, he does not.
Ron represents, office represents most of the towns on the island.
Oh, I know Ron.
Yeah,
No,
his office.
I don't know Ron.
His
I didn't know
reference,
who
he
he
did
was
give the
referring
reference.
to.
I got the reference. votes.
You're the only one that got it.
I know, I'm surprised at you, Leo, but please go ahead, Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Well, here, you've got it in your hands now, the,
Yes.
Okay, so this came up at the county advisory board, and Leon asked for the treasurer's office to produce more detailed information than what was presented to the CAB, because that was not necessarily the best information that we could have provided. So this is something that we have come up today. You can see where we stand at the end of the fiscal year 18 when it comes to the unreserved fund balance. And so the whole unreserved fund balance at the end of fiscal year 18 is 827,000. However, that unreserved fund balance comprises of different subsets, and some of them are restricted. So one of them, and the biggest one, is the Registry of Deeds. So right now, Registry of Deeds holds $471,000, and then whatever is left is divided between the Cape and Island license plates, which is restricted to economic development and tourism, and that's $138,000. So what we have left in general fund for general county operations and expenditures is $218,000. Now, this is not an audited number, and since beginning of fiscal year 19, you have voted that another $15,000 goes out of that account into the capital improvements towards the chimney repair that came up. So I would say the best number we can provide you with today as what is in the general fund is about $203,000. Now, again, not audited.
Leon?
Just at the CAB meeting, the number came up that we had a $750,000 surplus in our monies. And at the time, it wasn't definable. That's why I asked for this document to be created, because we thought, and Paula was right, that a bunch of it was Register of Deeds money, and it was all commingled in a flat number, and it really caused a lot of issue with the CAB, because they were all set to ask the towns not to even fund this next year if we had so much of a surplus, but we didn't have that surplus. So this clarifies, as Martina says, not as an audited number, but at least a number that's more reflective of what we normally have surplus. Has been around $200,000 to $300,000 over the last 8 years.
And so this,
Tristan?
I'm sorry, so we have $100,000 or more, right, in an unreserved fund. But that's the philosophy of what they were allowing
no,
us to
so
keep.
that's what I wanted to say. If you look, that there is about $203,000 there right now. We have thought, and this board at some point voted to put $200,000 into the stabilization fund. The county advisory board did not approve that. So there is no other money anywhere else. This is it. So if they so choose, if they actually did vote the $200,000 to go into the stabilization fund, there will be $3,000 left.
So, I mean, I think number one, we need to go back to them with
We
this
have a meeting
information.
scheduled next
And
week.
second of all, their philosophy has been with us over the years on stabilization was that we would have $100,000,
150, yeah.
whatever, it was 150?
Yeah, but they go back and forth.
All right, well,
but-
somewhere between 100 and 150, they were allowing us to keep. That's been a precedent going back many, many years in the stabilization fund. So I guess, yeah, we ought to go back to them about this and point out
So-
to them that we're right on the wire, of falling off the wire if something happens.
So at the last meeting, we have actually talked about it a lot. That 700,000 number really put a big wrench into that whole discussion, and it seemed like there might be some money going back to the towns, but then they did agree that they might not want to actually tie the money into the stabilization fund because the different mechanism of how to get the money out kicks in, which they were not necessarily in favor of. But they were willing to keep around 200,000 into this unreserved fund as sort of a standing balance with going, and then there was a discussion about going to the tax base and putting a warrant article in each town, and the voters deciding if they want to move the 200,000 into the stabilization fund. But I think that with this new information, I think that I will be at the next CAB proposing not to move that article, because we would be left with nothing.
Trustee?
So 2 points. Number one, doing that article at every town meeting would be disastrous because it's hard
We all agree.
to explain beyond anything else. Second of all, I guess I know that. So we had preliminary numbers that got thrown around out there, which I think has caused some of this issue. Because now when we're seeing the real story, that. So next year or the next fiscal year, I think we need to be mindful of how that number the 700 and something got put out there, when it got put out there, and so that we can sort of take the bull by the horns in a more, what's the word I want to use, more solid fashion than it's not our fault, I'm not saying that, but I think these preliminary numbers and stuff get thrown around out there, then you have a reaction from the CAB to numbers that aren't really solid, and this is obviously, we're further down the road, so I just, whatever we do next year, whoever the chairman may be, I think we ought to keep it mindful that, of what happened this year. And
The issue was not with us, it was with the treasurer providing us with numbers.
right, well, I didn't say it was.
So it's not us generating numbers. Now, this 200,000, and if I remember correctly, it came up at the last CAB when they were doing the budgets. Noreen said that number is a nice number to have because it allows us to pay our first quarter payments, because the towns don't appropriate their first payments until October. And that 200,000 gives us sort of a float to get us through that, and it just rides around in a circle. So the 200,000 unrestricted sort of just keeps us at a steady keel paying our bills.
In a stabilization
Right.
fund, yeah, and I mean,
But it's not a stabilization. Stabilization, it's locked, and we have to use, you have to have a vote to take it out. This is just money that's there in our bank account.
So that's
we
preferable, I
Use,
see
we use to
what you're
pay our bills and
Yeah.
continue operating as we have been for the
Okay.
last several years.
yeah, you're right, yep.
Thank you.
The other piece of the information that's on that paper that I was trying to get a handle on with the treasurer is the capital improvement fund. And then there has been 2 different accounts that they were using for capital improvements. They had one that was dedicated to the courthouse for a while, and then they created a capital fund. So that's why in the 3rd column they are combined, because I think that they are working with the auditors of what's going to be booked where. But the bottom line is that there is 140,000 in there, but again, since the beginning of the year, we're gonna be dedicating 40,000 of that towards the chimney repair, asbestos removal, and the heating system repair at the courthouse. And there's also about 8,600 that needs to go back to the towns that we have collected in the CPCs but have not used. And then also there is about $52,000 that will be spent on installation of the lift. So we have budgeted it last year, but the lift is actually not being installed until this year. They're actually coming on Monday. And so the money is sort of reserved for that. So at the end of the day, after these projects that we have, planned for, budgeted for, or are foreseeing, there's gonna be about 37,000 in the capital improvement fund left. So that gives you a perspective of, it used to be 150 in there, but we have used all of it for the various projects. So
part of that will be refunded when
so after the end of this fiscal year, then whatever we spend in this fiscal year would,
So I just want to, I know I'm repetitive, I'm sorry. We need to next year, before numbers are brought out by that office down there, I mean, we need to, so we're playing defense. We go before the CAB, Skipper asks the questions that Skipper's gonna ask. And so it's like we need to be more, approach this just rhetorically, more,
Well, Kristen,
more
again,
proactive
I
with
must
these
say
guys.
that Leon was correct. There's only so much you and I can do. Those numbers come from the treasurer's office. If I'm requesting that the numbers come and they don't, and they show up last minute, and nobody has,
well, we need to
What
bridge that.
what I'd say, Tristan, and right now, this document, the logic that was used to put this together more accurately would be the same method that she would use to do it in the
Correct.
future.
Hopefully,
So
yeah.
therefore, I would anticipate this time next year, or next November, October, these kind of numbers
Correct.
will be correct.
Absolutely. This is when we need
Because
it.
the
Yeah.
problem was, when she was doing it, she didn't know what was in the number.
Yeah.
This is separated out, she uses the same type of report and runs this, and maybe we should ask the report more frequently.
Right,
like-
I'm saying we need to encourage that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And we should have had this, yeah, it would have been a different dynamic.
Yes, Paul?
I had a question on the Crawford County Manager, and just refresh my memory on it. So, this year, we are receiving quarterly payments, this fiscal year, we're receiving quarterly payments from the trial court for last year's capital improvement. That's coming quarterly. So, is that where this, part of this $140,000 is coming from?
no, so that is not, so what do you see in this report, if you can see that, in the second column, last number is 25,892. That is a capital improvements portion of the courthouse that we have collected for fiscal year 18 rent. So expended in 17, we have collected it in 18, and now it shows up in 18. And instead of going into the general fund, it needs to go back to the capital improvement fund. So at the end of fiscal year 19, there's gonna be a portion of that rent that's not gonna make it into the general fund, but it's gonna go back to the capital improvement fund. And we have done the ramp last year, and that was a huge expense, plus the emergency water repair. So I am expecting even bigger number than this to replenish the capital improvement fund.
And it doesn't make it back to the capital improvement fund quarterly, it makes it back
No,
at the end of the
yeah.
fiscal.
Yeah, it's a lag, it's a big lag.
No, we don't need to take any action on this.
No, I just wanted you to be aware of, and then we have a county advisory board scheduled for December 11th, which is next Tuesday at 1 p.m. So any of you who would like to, because you know that the county advisory board at the end of the day is the one that makes decisions about what is and what's not in our unreserved fund balance. 1 p.m.
1 p.m.
I would really encourage you to come and have those discussions also along the lines of, and I have it under my manager's report, which we can go right into, the fiscal year 2020 budget, because county advisory board did not allow me to add the 5% administrative fee to the regional services. So the way the warrant articles for all the regional services went to towns was just their bare budgets. Therefore, the 60,000 that I have budgeted into our budget to balance it is not there now. So we have a deficit in fiscal year 20 budget, and it's gonna be up to the county advisory board. You know, Skipper was saying, oh, let's see where we can find the money. So I'm very curious where he's gonna be finding about the 30,000 worth of revenue in that budget. And the third piece are the warrant articles. So they voted that the counties put 2 warrant articles on the town meeting floor. One is to move the money into the stabilization fund. And the other one was to fund OPEB for the county, because right now we don't have any revenue that we can allocate to keep funding our OPEB, other post-employment benefits. And so they felt that we can go and we can ask the towns if they would contribute towards our OPEB. And I'm trying to remember what was the number they were asking for. I think it was 50,000. But I believe that warrant article is not going to go far, because some of the towns are not even funding their own OPEB. So I don't think that they will be very you know,
Don't
generous
count on
thing,
it, is
you
what
know.
you say.
Will we
Yes,
and we're gonna
so
pull the other.
I
article.
think that I don't have a legal counsel opinion, but I think I wanted to run this by you because usually those warrant articles are sponsored by the county commissioners. And so this was a county advisory board vote asking me to do that. But I think you as county commissioners have to take an action because otherwise I believe that those warrant articles, you know, I don't know if they, you know, I would like you to
Leon,
support
go
that.
ahead.
If I heard you correctly, the $200,000 for the stabilization fund is a moot point now because we don't have the money to be,
Oh, technically we do.
well,
but
but that's
not really.
in free
Yeah.
cash. We don't have, this was all generated by the fact that we had that $700,000 surplus. And it didn't exist. And now, so these warrants would basically, you've got this money, if you want to use it, let the town say they use it, or we take it. We don't have that much. I think those warrant articles don't make sense anymore.
And
Go ahead, Tristan.
so on the OPEB one, I agree, a couple of things on that. In fact, I was talking about Tisbury today about that. We should have more sort of scientific methodology on any OPEB we are establishing, whether it's to an index or to something. Number two, if I would say not put that on, if that we get a lot, you know, if the CAB, like, say, goes ballistic that we're not putting it on, then we can go to the towns for late filed, which will probably get turned down by the towns that are not doing it anyway. But I would say the second one we shouldn't bother doing, and probably shouldn't bother doing the first one either at this point.
Well, go ahead. I was gonna say, from my experience, once you file an article, for whatever it happens to be, and it's accepted by the town, that's the article. You can't change it. We certainly can't increase the money.
So I would say let's not do it. Let's just not take any action on that, and we'll go to the CAB next week, because we're gonna tell them the numbers we're working with now are very different, and B, we don't know how to approach the OPEB thing, because some towns aren't even funding it.
And again, I mean, if they want us to do OPEC, and we can move 50,000 from the free cash
Good,
into
yeah,
that,
sure,
then we'd do that. I
Yeah.
mean, that would be the option.
yeah, sure, I agree.
So I'll make a motion that we move $50,000 from free cash into OPEC for next year.
I'll second that.
No, there's a motion made. Is there a second?
You did got it?
There is a second.
Comments
Yes.
from the manager?
I would say we can do that. I think I would first, I mean, are you talking for fiscal year 20?
Yeah, 2020.
So you would like to add 50,000 to our budget and then 50,000 moved from the unreserved fund towards funding the OPEB?
Yes.
Okay. That's fine. I think, you know, we can look at the end of fiscal year 18, and if we have to amend the budget because we cannot afford it, then we can, you know, change that budget.
Tina, is this real money we're talking or smoke and mirrors?
No, this is real money. We have 200,000, and if we're doing well, we will still have the 200,000 plus some at the end of the year. That is not an issue. My issue is that even if we put it in the budget, we still 30,000 in, you know, in deficit, so.
So the deadline on the article, so we're gonna be going to CAB next week. So there's, I guess some towns already have deadlines on
I have
articles.
submitted it for Edgartown with the, you know, with a note that language might change because I need a council advice anyways, but as a placeholder, so they know these warrant articles are there, we can always take them out
Is there any other
before
city?
the town meeting.
There's no other town, right?
No.
That's the only one.
Yeah.
So I think we'll know more after next,
Yep, you're right.
so I would say let's not do anything until after that.
So, okay, so my understanding, just so I can then have a discussion with the CAB, is that the county commissioners are in general not in favor of both of these articles?
Well, there is a motion on the floor.
Well, let's do the motion
Yeah.
first, and then we'll do
Would you kindly restate your motion?
the motion was to take 50,000 from, would be to put in a budget line for OPEC for 50,000 and fund it from $50,000 from this year's surplus.
Did you say OPEC? If we could get OPEC
I mean,
money, that would be good. They have a lot of money.
Okay. And that's what the 50 would do, and I think Martina had
The
it written down.
Saudis,
So it will be from the unreserved fund balance.
Unreserved fund balance.
That's been moved, it has been seconded.
Mhm.
So all those in, unless you have another question?
Yeah, I know OPEC is, just tell me what those initials are as.
Other
Other-
employment,
Other
post-employment benefits.
Other
Post-employment benefits. As
yes.
opposed to OPEC, which
Yeah,
is the
well,
oil
that's-
producing
And-
countries.
and
Okay.
this
And the reason for
fiscal
that
year.
is that the,
That was a great deal.
we
Yeah,
have a,
I'd go
we
with
have
OPEC.
Let's go.
we have people out on retirement that aren't properly funded for
Okay.
benefits going forward, so
Yeah,
this
yeah.
money is going into that,
Okay.
to make up for that.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Okay.
So voted.
Okay.
Now, the question on the motions for the articles, I don't know if we have to take a vote on that, because the money that we're gonna use to ask the articles to be used for is not there anymore. We don't have $70,000 of free cash to be able to allocate, to ask the towns, do you want us to give it back to you, or should we put it in the
Oh, true,
stabilization fund?
true.
So I think we go back to the CAB
CAB.
next week
Yeah.
and explain that to them, they're gonna see, yeah, you're right.
Hopefully.
Well, if they don't say you're right?
Well, then that means that they're gonna ask the towns to fund us an additional $200,000,
That's not good.
and that's not gonna happen.
Not gonna happen.
That's,
But if we've submitted articles,
we've only submitted one.
One town.
In
with
one
a note.
town,
In
and we
one
can
town.
take the articles out before the town meeting. We can even take it out on the town meeting floor if we have to. It's, let's
The
make sure
deadline,
that this makes sense.
they have a deadline like of when they're actually gonna all go to print.
I
to
understand
vote,
that,
so we're
I
good.
understand that.
We're good.
But you haven't added in this 5%, which is not gonna fly anyway.
Correct.
I do have a question, just
Yeah.
a side question on the 5%. When we're doing grants and things like that, we can still, we voted to do those
Yeah.
as well. And those we can continue to, or ask for 5% when
Yeah.
we
The
can.
argument that was being used is, it's like additional tax being added to the towns.
Well, if there's money built into the grant for administration fees, that's the rub of it.
Right. But
Oh,
if you're asking to fund the Center for Living and you put an extra 5% on that for administration costs.
But I really seriously question, as we said, and I think they agree, going forward, for example, those articles that are community services where we're a pass-through, where we don't need to be a pass-through anymore, I don't think we should be
Yes.
doing it, because we're not getting paid for our administrative time to do it. And, community services is saying, well, we go to all the meetings, and we have all the staff, so great, then let them do it, and let us not have, why would we be involved in that? We're spending a lot of hours administrating something that we're not getting recompense for, that community services is, for example, I'm picking on community services, let them, next year, let them statutorily where they can do it.
Can we ask Ann a question? Ann, when that check comes from the town to community services, what do you do with it? You just send it directly to community services, or they submit it?
No, they pay, well, depending on the program, but most of them are quarterly. They submit quarterly bills that Martina painstakingly goes through.
Yeah, and we don't get recompense for all this work, and they're saying, what I was hearing was, that maybe there's one of them where we have to do it because of the agreement, I don't know, but on the other things, we're not getting, the island is, the selectmen and the other towns wanted this all to go to community services. They felt that this was a better place for this. We've done that. So, but they don't want to, but we're still doing a lot of the administration of those services. And my point was, that's why I wanted, whether it was 3% or 5% or whatever. So if we're not getting that, and there's no statutory reason for this pass-through, then why shouldn't they go next year to the towns, put their articles in, and just do it directly? I think it would make it a lot simpler, easier for them as well. They don't have to be mixed up with us.
And that's a plus.
Yeah,
Yeah, but they're dealing with 6 entities instead of one.
but community services says we go to all the FinComs, we do all that. They didn't seem to feel that was a problem. So great, let them do it.
See, the CAB still wants that to go through the county. They have been very clear about that, you know, county is very helpful to the town, so each town doesn't have to deal with the entity, you know, directly and individually, that it gets, you know, sort of combined here, and then, you know, we are sort of the collective procurement,
But we
you know,
don't, we don't have
for
to
those
do,
services.
we don't have to do that. We could just say, we don't wanna do that, let community services go with their article.
Question, is the process broken?
The process is broken in that we have, as a county, helped the towns in couple instances, and then more and more is coming every year. So every year I acquire at least one more additional regional service that now we collect the money, I send the bills, I sometimes have to tally the bills, sometimes I even do the work, sometimes I contract it out. But I'm involved, and it takes more time, my time, treasurer's office time, Connie's time helping me, and we don't get paid extra for it. So
Is there not a presentation that should be made to the county advisory
it
board?
was, and it was.
They didn't buy
So I would suggest at the next county advisory board, fine, you don't want to add a fee to a specific service, then make me whole on the deficit that I have in the county budget, because that is a county administration, and this is the cost of it. And the towns have not increased the contribution towards the county administration in 8 years.
Well, then,
And we should be working with zero increases
should
and
we not
doing
give
more.
them a decision to make? If you want the county to do this, then you have to pay for it. And if you don't want to pay for it, then have these agencies go directly to the towns.
Yeah,
And you deal with it.
And I think those agencies expressed, at least what I've heard, that they didn't really have a problem with that. So why not?
Well, the simplest thing is this, that the county budget was allowed to increase to the 2.5%.
But it isn't.
In the towns. We don't have this protracted discussion.
But then they'll come and get it back.
There's another way too, and the other way is that,
Thank God you're here to help us.
there's another way that this happens, is that we tell the county advisory board that we're gonna strictly be a pass-through. They're gonna submit an invoice to Ann, she's gonna pay it with no review every time. It's just a straight pass-through. There's no administrative review in their bills. Just,
Yeah, I hear
they
you.
submit it to us, we pay the bill, that's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. I mean, 'cause
No review.
So that could work, except for, I have a contract. Somebody needs to hold the organization accountable
Which
to what
contract?
are they supposed to.
Which
I
contract?
have a contract for service between county and community services, and between county and the Center for Living, and that's why they sending me the bill. And so who is gonna be on the end of towns making sure that those services are provided to the contract?
Well-
And why should I even spend time making a contract if
So-
I
so-
should
so
not
that's-
be
that's the-
administering the contract?
But that's the rub. So example, all these articles go through each town, and they have, they have treasurer collectors, accountants, and stuff like that. And they all, I know Tisbury is, they pay one way, other towns pay other ways. There's all kinds of nuances. There are all kinds of that. So as much as they say, well, we go to all the FinComs and do all the articles, they're not dealing on that front line with all the nuances which each town has. And that, to me, we're not getting recompense for that. And again, just pass it through or do what Leon's saying.
Bob,
I
please.
just want to, I think it's important to point out to the CAB that the administrative services are more than just rubber stamping things. Number one, there's work involved. Number two, the Center for Living would still be bouncing from one location to another in order for Martinez involved, and getting them a building and getting them settled in. And I think what we need to do is to sell what we do, rather than to be passive and let them tell us. It's like, if you don't want us to do these services, if you want these things to slowly wither because they're not getting the proper administrative attention, then we'll do it that way. But we're just going around in a circle here. We give them the choice. Either we'll do it right, or the towns can get all involved, and then you're gonna have 6 entities all involved in this one operation, and one town decides they don't wanna support it, then what happens to the whole damn budget? It's down the tubes.
But that would be, at that point, it would be, and I got the impression that they were just as happy, for example, on community
Well, I know
services.
you've said
Community,
this
right,
3 times. The point
they
is,
don't, they're okay with that.
Okay, you don't know the poison you're drinking until you drink it.
So that's true.
Well, community services is getting a 14%, they're getting paid 14% of the budget to administer these programs.
Yes.
Yeah,
You know,
there you go.
so that's a lot right there that we.
Are you the commission guy?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll vote yes for Leon on commission, I gotta go.
I'm sorry, I tried to move along as fast as I could.
So you did good, we did a lot. It's my, I have to go to CPC meeting.
Yeah, now we're gonna move.
That you can do, yep. Do all these things.
Take the motion.
It's
Well, it's not gonna go anywhere.
It's been a pleasure.
It's been a pressure, I mean pleasure.
Doesn't mean he has to go.
Thank you, everybody.
All right.
Bon nuit, as they say somewhere in the world.
Go Pats.
Go Pats.
Please, Mr. Chairman.
Well,
If I may, in conversations with Ms. Moore at some point on the same topic, she had mentioned, and I don't want to quote her, but she said something about the legality of nonprofits entering into contract with the towns directly, that therefore they pass through the county. So as you're discussing this, just, I haven't
What's the
investigated.
basis of that?
I don't know.
So there, and that's why it's easier to do one contract for the service on behalf of all the towns, divvy it up 50-50 formula, collect the money here, and then pay one invoice that comes for that service, right? If each town had to do it separately, each town would have to have their own separate service contract with the entity, and then they would have to, every time somebody gets paid, divvy up the bill based on some formula and collect portion of somebody's payroll from each town separately. It gets
Well, you know-
complicated for the towns.
You know, it's interesting, Ian just said something, if community service is getting 14% for administering, then why don't we bill them 4% for our piece of that and make them have 10, and just split that number, 4 to 10.
The question is, who should we be billing? Should we be billing the services that I contracted for a certain amount? Or should we be billing the towns on which behalf we actually acting in those transactions?
Right now, the way the
If you
CAB,
weren't doing the work, the towns would have to do it, and they would be spending the money. So there's a logical sequence here, and instead of making it more complex than we have to, let's not, what are we gonna go into each agency and try to claw money back from them? That doesn't work.
that's correct.
Where are we, Mr. Chair?
Damned if I know.
county bylaws.
Now, I'm gonna skip that. I'm gonna go over it because I wanna do the Martha's Vineyard Commission appointment before we lose anybody else.
Okay.
And that has to be completed by the 20th day of December. So we are at the juncture of appointing someone, and the current person is Leon. I'm going to ask Leon if he'd be interested in continuing on serving on the Martha's Vineyard Commission.
Yes, and it's probably the most busiest groups I've ever belonged to. They
What
meet
group?
5 times,
What?
Martha's Vineyard Commission, they
No,
meet
most what group?
the busiest.
Busiest.
They have 5 meetings a month, along with site visits, and
And if you wanna know what's going on, you have to go to the Land Use Planning Committee meetings.
right, LUPC meetings first, so that's Monday, and then Thursday is the meeting, and then on Thursday, the last Thursday month, they have a general meeting just to talk about whatever, and then they have site visits at the same time.
Been there, done that.
I understand, and the first day that I was there, I asked my first question, and as you know, I took Lenny's place, and they said Lenny hasn't left. So,
That was not a
That
compliment.
was good news or bad
that
news?
was good news.
So you've made a motion to appoint.
No, I haven't. I simply
I said-
asked
I
who
said
was the
yes.
present member.
I said yes.
Remember I told you last week, the chair doesn't make motions.
Thank you, sir.
So that's up to you, and I'm listening to you now, if you make a motion.
Leon, are you interested in continuing on with this very busy work?
Yes.
Then I make a motion that Leon be the representative for the Martha's Vineyard Commission from the board.
Is there a second? Well, it's either gonna be you or me, Bob.
You can second it.
I'll second it.
Okay.
I'll call for a vote.
It has to be a commissioner, is that correct?
Yeah, we're not gonna go through.
No, I'm just,
Yeah,
that's just.
yes,
that's a-
yes,
okay,
yes.
That was decided at a previous
Okay, I'm with
meeting.
you, I'm with you.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
Abstain.
Abstention? Congratulations.
Thank you.
Is there no quorum? I'm
No,
sure you
there's
would.
a quorum, abstention counts as a yes vote.
Oh, there you go. See?
Leon can vote for himself, it's
I know,
perfectly
no,
legal.
I know that.
All right, let's get with it, folks. County Personnel Bylaw Amendment.
Okay, so I send you the proposed amendments to the county bylaws as they were approved by the county personnel board. And they are mainly addressing some gaps that we found in some definitions. And then I think that the biggest change is that for employees that used to be under 20 hours, they were not getting any benefits. And this amendment actually allows for all county employees to receive benefits if they are permanent employees, no matter if they are full-time or part-time. And those benefits would be prorated based on the average number of hours that they work. So people would receive sick time, they would receive vacation, but it would be really only based on the actual hours they work. Because we had a couple situations where I'm artificially holding people under 20 hours because I don't have enough money to give them benefit package. And now those employees don't even have a paid day of sick or vacation, but they work year round. They do based on the sick, based on the state law, but not the same equivalent that the rest of the county employees. So that's the biggest single change. And I don't know if you had a chance to
Something's
look
beeping.
through it. Yeah, it's my phone and my son.
Probably a fire alarm or something.
The other there was a discussion about compensation, and I have the personal board expressed their not recommending for overtime, for comp time for overtime. They would much rather have people be actually paid for any overtime that they work. And so they recommended that we add to the budget line, say, overtime pay line in each department. So if we're requesting the employee to be working overtime, they get paid. Now, we have kept the comp time in the bylaws, but it has to be mutually agreed between the employee and the employer that instead of them getting paid, they would keep it on the books as comp time, and they would have 45 days to use the comp time. And if the time would not be used, or that period extended by the department head, that they would actually be paid for the overtime to get it off the books. So that is another big change, and I think that's about it.
Quick comment, I don't like the either-or part of that. It's good that you're limiting it to 45 days so people don't go for 10 years accumulating comp time and then retire 2 years early. That doesn't work out for me, but I think it has to be consistent. It muddies the water in my mind. Having been involved for a lot of years in dealing with personnel issues and having my primary education in that area, I would say that the simpler way you keep it, the healthier it is. And I'm not gonna vote against it, but I would say that I would prefer that it be one or the other, period.
When you say one or the other, either overtime or comp time?
Yep. Absolutely.
As a member of the Personnel Committee, it was wrestled very hard on that. And as you see, we did ask that they put line items in the department budgets for overtime so people could take overtime. And the concern was that if you didn't have that in there, that people would have people work the overtime, and get comp time only. And
No, I don't have a problem with having overtime. I have a problem with going this way or that way. I frankly don't like comp time. Comp time is very disruptive to any organization, particularly small
and it's
organizations.
not allowed on FLSA.
People are gonna take comp time when it's not convenient for the organization, but it's convenient for them. And so I would just go with overtime and stick with it. I know you're on the committee, I know you've done a lot of that, but I also have a graduate degree in industrial relations from Cornell, and I can tell you that that is not something that is, comp time is not the greatest deal in the world.
Bob, I agree with you, although I don't have a degree from any university.
Well, I would just, we were talking
But
about.
I could, wait a minute, it's my turn to talk.
No.
You have to listen.
My last meeting.
The county, got burnt with comp time once, not too many years ago.
That's right.
I remember it, and so I would strongly recommend that we stay away from comp time.
And I would point out, this is the first time in 2 years that John and I have been in agreement.
That's right. Go ahead.
So if I may, the past practice was comp time, and the main reason is budgetary. If we budget and we don't foresee comp time being needed, and then the comp time is needed, there's no money allocated and approved to pay, yet you would be within 2 weeks, responsible to make that payment. And I'm sorry, I'm gonna use Connie, but she is here now, which is past her 4:30 end of work, and so she would be due overtime pay at 1.5 times anytime she stays over her 40 hours a week. And that is not anything budgeted. So that policy that would strictly restrict us to overtime pay at 1.5 times would increase the budget, and we would have to amend this year's budget and next year's budget. And I must say that some employees actually don't mind getting the comp time, which is like another extra day off, so.
Well, from the organizational point of view, I understand what you're saying, and I think in the case of attending meetings like this, it happens once a month. It may amount to an hour a month. I don't think that's going to shoot too many holes in the budget. In general, it's up to the managers to manage their personnel and to manage the usage.
That's right.
And that's my view. I mean, I agree with what you're saying about Connie, and I know you love comp time. But as a retiree, I can tell you I love comp time. But the bottom line is that I don't think it's good for the organization. I'm done.
Can I just have a quick explanation about comp time? So comp time means that if someone works more than they're supposed to in a 40-hour week, that time gets essentially added to like a bank that you can take out of it and not work a day to get paid. So for example, if Connie stays over 5 hours this week, in theory she could then next week work from 11:30 to 4:30 on Monday, and it would be a wash. She would get the same amount of money basically.
Except, and now we're getting into very difficult territory. We used to have that the first 2.5 hours were at straight time because everybody gets half an hour paid lunch, and it wasn't the actual hours worked, and that's what John was referring to. We had a really hard case a couple of years ago. But if you work over 40 hours, and that's a law, over actually worked hours in a week, you have to go to 1.5 times. So if she stays 2 hours extra, she would end up with 3 hours that she can take later.
Okay, so it's as if it's the same way that salaries get 1.5 times, so is comp time itself. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I had one in here, that I didn't catch at the meeting.
I win the bet. He had a question.
And that's the one about the employees have to keep track of their time on their pay stubs.
It's not the employees, it's they are required to track their time on timesheets.
Right.
That they then submit, is approved by the department head, and is based on that timesheet, there is a payroll warrant created.
Right.
And then that's given to the treasurer's
but in the
office, that the
document-
treasurer's office
but-
puts it into the system, and then yes, it is tracked on their paychecks.
Right, but the way it's worded here, it says the employees are supposed to check that to see if it's right on their pay stubs. That's what, it's in the.
Yes, just to make sure that everybody's on the same page.
But I didn't take a vacation day this month. For some reason, one got put in and I didn't even see it on my paycheck. How would I know that you asked me to check something I wouldn't normally be checking?
That's why it's in there, so you do check it.
You need to have a central place checking your payroll records. It shouldn't be.
I mean,
the employee.
it is being checked, but I'm saying as a, we kind of, this is a reminder to the employees to make sure that we are,
All right, I'm gonna allow one more comment. Ann?
It's common practice for employees to double check their payroll and their vacation. And most employees know how many vacation days they have, how many sick days they have. But it's just a reminder, we enter right off the timesheet. So if they put 8 hours in vacation, and we put 8 hours in vacation, it's going to come out. I mean, that's just how it's gonna work. But if they put 8 hours in vacation and they meant to put 8 hours in sick time, I'm not going to know that. The manager may or may not have known that when they approved the time card. That's why the employee should look at.
I'm talking about the employee put in 40 hours of regular pay, and for some reason, it got one day got charged for vacation, and they didn't even know about it. That's the one I'm talking about. How would the employee know that?
You may not know this one, but next week you did take a day off, and you see that you would be even more short than.
Say,
Well, because the other problem you have is the way you set up your system now, you're accruing your time on a regular basis. So I got it adding and subtracting. I'm supposed to keep track of my adds and subtracts. Somebody somewhere has to be in charge of that.
It's on your paycheck. The total vacation, total sick time, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Your total vacation, your total sick time, even like right now, their comp time, shows on each paycheck. So it has a beginning balance of 80, they take 8, it moves down to 72. They can see
But
that
you're
right
adding,
there.
but you're also adding.
okay, we've had enough crosstalk.
It's accrued based on 40, on their 80 hours. for the
I just want to know, do you require a vote, or it doesn't say on this, my sheet here.
It does require a vote
Okay.
in order for it to be amended, but as I was reading through the personal bylaws, there is some interesting clause about how these personal bylaws can be amended. And let me just
30-day
read.
notice?
Amendment of the bylaws. The bylaws may be amended by any public hearing of the county commissioners after public notification, but posting in the county commissioners meeting agenda at least 14 days in advance. So, would
Well,
you
next
like to create a public hearing on this and post it at least 14 days before your, I would say at this point, January meeting?
Well,
We have one first vote.
we're gonna have to vote on it, whether, after you have a public hearing. The public hearing isn't a vote.
Right, and I would suggest that we send back Bob's concerns. The Personnel Committee was gonna meet later this month to revisit the issue of comp time. So that can be dealt with now in December. And whether we do it at the January meeting or the February meeting, nothing's gonna change in how we're doing business right now.
Is that the way that you learned folks wanna go?
To put it back to committee? Put it back to, yeah, sure.
Well, we've got through that.
No, I think that's the way it should be done.
Yes.
I agree.
Now, I would like you to come forward.
You're gonna hit me again? Oh, God. You know that I'm.
Before you fall asleep over there, I want to do this.
I'm not sleeping, I'm fighting. My foot's asleep, but I'm.
You're going to have to leave the board, and it's unfortunate. But we want to give you something to remember us by, not our phone numbers or anything like that. In grateful recognition of your dedicated service to the citizens of Dukes County, who you serve with dignity, put it over a crack on the wall or something, you know?
Well, I'm glad that it's what it is. I thought it might be a stick that you were gonna hit me with. Well, I thank you very much, and I was hoping that you guys would give me a few minutes to make a couple of comments, and I will make them fast.
Please.
Because I know that we're getting...
Take your time.
First of all, I wanted to really thank all of you, the commissioners, for putting up with me, for educating me, for allowing me to, even at my advanced age, to grow over the last 2 years. I particularly wanted to thank the staff because I've had a lot of questions and I've needed some hand-holding from time to time, and I always got it when I needed it, and I'm very grateful for that. What I'm going to say next is going to sound counterintuitive, but those who know me well know that I am a very strong believer in term limits. I don't think people should own seats in any board or any group forever. And I had originally run with the statement that I would serve one term. And when David decided he was not going to stand for election again, and I couldn't find that anybody else was running at that point in time, in loyalty and in recognition of what this group does, decided that I should stand for election because it would be a shame not to have the standing 7 members that were currently called for. I was delighted when these 2 gentlemen stepped forward. I was 2 days away from leaving for Taiwan. I got a phone call from a friend in OB saying, hey, there are people putting signs up that are running for the commission. I know you're going away, but would you like us to get some signs out? I said, hell no, don't you dare put any signs up. I think it's wonderful that we've got somebody with some significant business experience, a young person who will bring vitality and excitement to the board, who will bring energy to the board, and I think that's absolutely wonderful. And though it may sound counterintuitive, I think it worked out just perfectly. And I welcome you both and wish you both well. I also want to say that it's been great in the sense that we have had some significant disagreements. We've worked through them. We've gotten over them. Any good organization has to have some tension. Everybody marches in lockstep. It's ridiculous. You have to have different ideas and different opinions. And I think that we've arrived at that, and it was good. I welcome the 2 of you, and these 2 chairs are yours. And after sitting through this meeting, you may be a little bit discouraged, but don't be. It gets better. Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you very much. And as Leon would say, do you want the empty box? The empty box?
No.
All right, can we move along?
Yeah. So a couple things. I wanted to update you on the courthouse. So the chimney was lined, asbestos was removed, and the final piece that needs to happen as far as the chimney is gonna be done in spring because this weather is not really good to work on top of the roof. I'm working with the heating company to do some upgrades on the system, which we will probably again do in the spring when we can drain the system, because the courthouse had to be closed for 2 or 3 days actually while this work was going on, and that was not serving, our constituents best, so we'll try to avoid it if we can. The chairlift is gonna be installed second week in December. They're coming on Monday. I do have agreement with them to work after hours, evenings, weekends, as not to disrupt the, court business. So hopefully that will be good. And then we are in the process of repairing the small alcove roof at the front. That should be finished up anytime soon. But so those are projects that we have been working on at the courthouse. I talked to you about the budget. We gotta see what the CAB has in mind. And the auditors have been here last week, and they said that we might be looking at preliminary numbers sometime end of January. So that's gonna be good to have good picture of the fiscal year 18. And I had to wrestle with a couple public records requests. I'm still in the middle of it, going back 22 years, so that's taking up some of my time, and mostly Connie's, I would be honest. So, but that's what. Oh, and we have scheduled a county Christmas party for Tuesday, December 18th. At 5:30 at the wharf. So you're all invited. We'll send some proper invitations out. We just scheduled it today. That's it.
Is there a meeting on the 12th?
Yes, so we need to talk about meeting next week for the purposes of approving and signing off on the bond. We do have a winning bid. The paperwork is coming. And so I have sent an email out for you guys to give me Wednesday at 2. Am I gonna get a quorum next week on Wednesday at 2?
One we said, I think.
1 o'clock.
1 is good, 1 good for everybody? 1 p.m.?
Wednesday is
Give me
the
the
12th.
date.
I think you said, John, that 1 o'clock is not good for you.
No, up until 1 o'clock.
So the CAB
So you
is
can
on
be
the
here at 1
11th,
o'clock.
on the 12th?
1 and after, we said.
This is on Wednesday.
What day of the
I'm
month
sorry.
is it?
It's Wednesday.
No, what day of the month is not Wednesday?
12.
The 12th.
Well, all right. It's Frank Sinatra's birthday too, folks.
You
Isn't
keep
your
all the
birthday coming
important
up soon,
information right there.
That's right.
John, isn't your birthday coming up soon?
No, we already had.
We're the same day,
Okay.
December the 3rd. Nice going, Leon.
I have a question to ask.
Marty, could we talk about, what is the date and time that we've just agreed about?
12/1.
What,
Wednesday,
December
December 12th
At
at 1 o'clock.
Okay, that's all right.
Yes, okay. That's
I have
what.
one more
And
question.
then
Because we need
Here at
Joe here.
And then we meet here at 2, according
No.
to this? It says December 12th, if I'm reading this
that's-
correctly.
We
Is it
changing
better
it
for
to 1.
1 or is it better 2?
This is the reason we're
Oh, this
talking.
is the one. Oh, yes, I see, yeah, no, 1, 1 is better, yes, thank you.
Okay, so
Okay,
I gotta
1
come back
o'clock.
to the other. Okay.
I
Okay.
have a question.
What? Leon, go
Martina,
ahead.
What happened with the contract with the auditor?
Nothing.
He hasn't got here yet.
No, the CAB had.
Nothing, because you know what? I will tell you what. I have the discretion over that whole operations budget. And I will wait until the end of the year. And if I don't spend in other lines, I can move enough money to honor the contract that I have signed. And CAB doesn't have to be involved.
Okay.
That's how I have taken care of that.
And the other option, we're gonna pass the hat.
No, not for that kind of money.
Yes, Chris.
Well, we got a document in the mail from you, Martina, and gave us a lot of information, and there was a decision to be made whether we were gonna go into executive session to discuss it. Where are we with that issue?
I think we should schedule that for January.
I'm sure you do.
Yeah, I'm for that.
But, okay, so so,
I'm not gonna schedule around Christmas time.
no,
That's
no, no,
nuts.
I'm just saying, we all got it, but we haven't talked about it. So I'm saying, is it something that we wanna go into executive decision, executive session?
Tristan was the one would like to have it, and he's not here to explain in great detail.
Wait, who would like to have it?
Tristan.
Tristan, and he
No.
talked about it at the last meeting, I think. Is that correct?
I
No,
don't
no,
remember.
this is something that was recommended by the county personnel board as an issue
Personnel
that they will not take on, but they wanted the commissioners to be aware. and I have sent it to you, and you can make a decision if you feel that there is a executive session needed to talk about it. I personally feel that this issue is closed unless you have different feelings, but.
Is
My
your,
question has
No.
to do with, when did we start, what is the process, or what is the procedure for getting involved in a administrative conflict in one of our agencies?
The issue is that if it was a current employee,
Okay.
yes, absolutely, and I would schedule that session with you if I felt like it's
Okay.
necessary.
This person is no longer an
This
employee?
person is no longer an employee.
Oh, that's very different.
yep, that's one.
But I don't like the deal anyway, but I agree with you.
But should we feel that that person was wrongfully, well, was the person dismissed or did the person resign?
Resigned. I sent you the
Resigned, okay.
resignation letter.
Okay,
Yeah, we
okay.
don't wanna go.
Well,
through
that's
that
what-
for the
Right,
whole
okay.
session.
That's not what, sorry, Tristan Ezra was referring to at the last meeting. As I recall, there was a discussion, and we couldn't do anything then in terms of executive session. You gotta give it enough days. He wanted to discuss, and he's not here, so I shouldn't say or characterize what he's saying. He wanted to, it was all over this bloody salary thing and your contract.
Oh, that thing.
And he wanted to talk about that, and that's why I said January, and you be in the chair, thank heavens for that.
Okay, so do you want for January? So we had a little bit of discussion with Leon on this topic, and I believe that we both felt that prior to having any further discussion about my contract or salary, we should have an evaluation.
Right, her current contract says that we should be evaluating her sometime between now and March to make a decision for the 20 budget.
I'm only repeating what I can remember
Yeah.
Tristan bringing up at the meeting last, you weren't even here,
I know,
so.
but since then.
So you can't talk about it, you're right, you weren't here.
I know, but I'm talking to Martina and I haven't talked to Tristan.
So back to my original question.
I don't know about the letter.
So it's moot, so
Yeah.
it's done, that one's
Yeah,
done,
yeah.
and we.
Unless you feel that there is some action you want to take or discussion, or you have questions
Well,
that you
no, I
want me
just
to
worry about
answer about the process.
I'm worrying about process. If if an employee feels that they have been unfairly removed, pushed out of what business does the county take in those situations? It's about process.
So in the personal bylaws, and you have copy of it,
Yeah.
there is a whole section on grievance.
Okay.
And this person did grieve, and it did go to me, and because there
Okay.
was a special situation that I could not have handled,
Okay.
it went to the full county personnel board. And
Okay.
the county personnel board did hold a public hearing on the grievance. And it was determined that the reasons for which the person was grieving were not anything that was sanctioned by the county personnel bylaws, and therefore they could not make a decision. And instead they have sent a couple letters out to the organization that was sort of grieved against. And I have tried to protect the rights of the employee, to make sure that we as county have done the best we could, and I have been told by the employee that yes, as far as county is concerned, we did hold up to the standards of, our contracts and agreements and personal bylaws. But regardless, that person felt that the situation was such as to, there was no other way for them to resign.
Thank you.
I want to say personally, thank you, Bob, for being here for the last term. And your witticism, picking up birthdays and dropping them out. You're good at this stuff. You're really good. If
I'm
there's
being contained.
Move.
If there's no other business to come before this most learned board, I would like to wish everybody a happy holiday season, and I'll accept a motion to adjourn from Gretchen.
So moved.
See you next week.
I was gonna say, Wednesday.
All right, one more.
I didn't say.